Well. It's been a little bit. Not too long, honestly, compared to my recent or past track record of taking months on end to make a new video. I am here with a new video and a happy announcement to make. I'm happy to announce that Red Purple, my friends, my Red Purple playing brothers and sisters, we're not dead. We can still play, and we can play very well. In fact, we can actually beat the top two decks, and it's with a strategy that I came up with. Now, is this some new, crazy, unique, mind blowing strategy? No, because Red Purple doesn't have many real spicy options. So there's real no huge twist you can do on Red Purple. But my idea and what I was playing was something that nobody in the room had. And the few people that were playing Red Purple and were mad lads like me had very different approaches. And and I kind of converted some of them to thinking, you know what? I might need to try out the sauce that Terrace Black made. Now, I'm gonna get to the sauce for a second, but I just want to say big shout out to Southside Gaming for their event. Um, I my first real test with this list was at their recent 10Ks that just happened. And shout out to my testing buddies, man. Central Florida really showed out. I think what our little testing group that we have is cracked. I think we just have so many, like many of us, like multiple of us were in contention for top 8, and 3 of us made top 8, and 2 of us made top 4. Shout out to my brother John, and shout out to my brother Mark, both playing red blue but like different versions. And yeah, kicked a lot of ass. So love to see that. It was my first time being out there at Southside. Loved the store, loved the energy. Everybody I met finally for the first time, everybody was awesome. Zero bad interactions. Every conversation, every interaction was awesome. And I really enjoyed my time there. And I'm glad that also, if you follow me on Twitter at all, follow me over at Twitter, please. Thank you. Uh, some people brought up and asked questions about the game I'm working on and, how that's going. And since that's not something I really talk too much about on here, just because it's a completely different subject, it was cool to have people be interested in something that I'm doing outside of Lorcana and seeing how that goes. And like I said, every interaction, every conversation was great, and all of you guys are awesome. So shout out to the entire event. Shout out to everybody there. Finally got to sit and have a full conversation with Zan and also Jeremy. Both of those guys are amazing. Um, and yeah, after my conversation with Zan, all I'm gonna say is that dude deserves whatever praise, whatever highlight he gets, because yeah, he's an awesome guy, and you can tell that he genuinely loves this game, but also is genuinely curious about whoever he's talking to, and what their interests are, what their goals are, and finding ways to have a conversation with them at a level that kind of is comfortable to them. And yeah, super awesome guy. If any of you get a chance to meet him in person, or even Jeremy, definitely take a moment. Obviously, if they're busy, if anybody's busy, you don't want to like bother them. But if you see they have some downtime, it's 100% worth it to go up, introduce yourself, and just have a quick casual chat with them. I think you'll really enjoy that. So everybody was out there, was awesome. And yeah, let's get to the red purple stuff. Let me shrink myself here. Woo! I can be about that big. That's all right. So this is the spice I was playing. Let's make it a little bit easier to see here. So, yeah, so a lot of what you're going to see here is pretty standard. That's red purple things. If you're a red purple player, we know the gist. We know how it is. And you're going to see some cards in this list that you've heard me say I don't like playing. at least in traditional red purple. That being cards like Diablo. But in this sort of list, I think it really works. And I think the sentiment for red purple really has been if it's going to even attempt to compete in this new landscape, this new meta that we have, it needs to go in a burn strategy. And so we've seen people, try and make lists with the queen and, using the queen effect, using LeFou to ready her and then do it again. And this is like a cool, like neat way to try to combat, all the item lists, because if they have any items in the discard, you can take them, throw them to the bottom of the deck so that they can't keep recurring them with the crabs. And I think this is an interesting strategy. And it was a strategy or a card that I attempted to test, but never quite felt comfortable or felt the time and space for playing it and thinking that, okay, if I play this and it gets blown up, I'm super far behind. But if I play it and it goes off, does that really put me more ahead or really put me in a position that puts me further ahead than my opponent that I need to be in this sort of matchup? Like if it only goes off once, was that three lore, or potentially, four lore if they have a bell, was that worth it? And in my testing personally, it wasn't worth it. Like I've said before, unfortunately, I don't think red purple got any new cards. And once again, I'm playing a deck that literally has no new cards from this set or last set. It's we're playing set 5 and before again. We're back to that, just like I was doing last set. So maybe next set we'll finally get maybe a couple cards that get to put us in. Can we get like a 6 drop that fits in red purple that has two really good sentences on it and is also inkable and has great stats? Can we get that? Can we get that? Come on now. I think every color should get their equivalent. And maybe it would be a purple 6 drop. Like, can we get a 6 drop that when on play it does a friends on the other side effect? We draw two, and then if we quest, we get to do something else. Like, I don't know. Can we get something good? Please, please give us something playable. Uh, but this is what's playable for now. So essentially, there's a core strategy and a core idea behind this deck. So I understood that we needed to go in a burn route, but the burn route just does not work when you play Thieveries. It does not work when you play Gathering. It does not work when even you play This Is My Family. I love that card, but it doesn't work. It's just when you focus too much on a strategy that's using actions to gain lore that your opponent can't interact with. The problem is there's a lot of steal going around, and the problem is they play cards that do actively interact with our cards that gain that lore. Pete alone really hurts that kind of strategy. And a lot of times, what you'll run into is situations where you just always feel like, okay, Thievery is the right card to ink. Um, or you're stuck on gatherings. And then when you're at a point where you can play all of them, your hand is just kind of empty. And now you have nothing. You have no gas. You have nothing that, like, now at this point, your opponent goes, okay, well, your hand's empty. Yeah, sure, you gained like 6 lore in one turn, but I have a board and I'm just going to quest. And you kind of just lose the battle there. So that strategy for burn just does not work. But we do have characters that gain us lore. We have the White Rose, we have the Merlin, and both of these are amazing cards. They have great stats for their cost, they're inkable, and they also gain you a lore and can be used with the bounce cards, as we know, to gain additional lore if we have the ability to do that. So you have this, but I'm gonna skip real quick down to where the real burn strategy comes from, and that's what you're going to find right here. So here you're going to see a lot of locations, a lot of purple locations, and ones that I chose for a very specific reason. Originally, when I first started playtesting, and I think this is a good way to playtest in general, is when you're trying to test out a new idea, just kind of go all in on it. So I did play 4 copies of each of these at first, and then after some play testing the night before and things like that, we decided to shave down on these two and just run 3 copies and then 4 of the library, totaling to math. That's 10. Yes, that's 10. I can do math. Awesome. Yeah, so the locations are the big strategy here. Let me do some zooming in so I can really show them some love. So the reason why these are really good, besides the fact that they're inkable, which is always nice, is that on the turn that you play them, even in a Bell meta, your opponent is is literally is no there's no way that your opponent is going to have enough strength to take out the stats of these locations at the point at which you play them. And obviously you're going to play them throughout the game as well, but like if you're going first and you go turn 1 ship into mountain, they have no turn 1 and 2 that gets rid of these by turn 3 even, right? Like maybe they can get rid of the ferry ship, but what happens a lot of the times is you'll play ferry ship on 1 and then you'll play a mountain on 2, and now their original direction was towards the ship, but now it's towards the mountain. And then I don't typically play library on 3. I usually play it on 4, which is why we don't play castle, right? And there's other reasons why we don't play castle, and I'll touch on that. But library is typically a four, a turn 4 play, but you can definitely play it on 3 if you feel like you have the right hand to kind of back up and start drawing, right? Like if you go 1, 2, 3, and then into a goat, and then goat sings friends, and you know that you can kind of trail off into a bunch of draw afterwards, then doing 1, 2, 3 might not be too bad. There are some instances where maybe that's the right way to go. I definitely think if you're playing against like a Zan's blue steel item list, that yeah, I would probably immediately try out going 1, 2, and 3, just because what are they gonna do? Like if they're gonna ramp to 4 and then spend an entire turn, that turn Zeusing a fairy ship, then you're so far ahead. You're doing really well at that point. So I do think against any strategy like uh, red blue items that my buddy John was playing, and blue steel items heavy that like Zan was playing, definitely just say screw it. Hit him with a 1, 2, 3. Keep dropping them as much as you want, because it's just going to rack up. That's 3, 6, 9. And that's on top of, after you do this, you're playing a bunch of characters that just replace themselves if they happen to die, or gain you lore, or draw you more cards so that you can drop more characters. And so, definitely, these were here on purpose. There's some people asked about Agrabah. Agrabah I don't like, just because it's only got 5 willpower, and by turn 3, turn 4, 5 willpower is pretty reasonable to get rid of for a lot of decks. And that's just like a Zeus away, right? Like you play it, they Zeus it, or you play it, they throw, a character, like 1 or 2 characters at it. It's no problem. Whereas library is something where like there it has so much health that you'll be surprised how many times that people can deal a max of 6, 7, and it just gets to sit there, and then you can like blow up the board or whatever it is by that point, and uh and then this just gets to sit here with like 1 or 2 health left on it. But simply because it's at 8, it's just so hard for people to get rid of, similar to like the McDuck Manor, which is why you're seeing it show up show up again. So you're really using the locations as the burn aspect of the deck. You're using these and the entire strategy of what you're doing with this list and how you play it. And it takes practice. And I still need some practice myself, after this tournament and stuff. But I'm still very happy with how it turned out. And we'll go over the matchups as well that I had, and just kind of my overall thoughts of the tournament. But what the strategy of this list is, the core strategy is that you're playing on 2 separate fields. you're essentially putting them in a Star Wars Unlimited match. How about that? Yeah, so you're playing on two separate planes and you're forcing them to now split their attention in two different directions when this game most of the time is focused and lasered into one. So you're going, all right, here's this little four willpower fairy ship. And then I'm going to throw this mountain. And now you're going to worry about these. But then I'm going to play this white rose. And then the white rose may run into your stuff and trade. And now you have less characters that are able to finally finish off this mountain or whatever, or even both of them. Or I'm going to sing with the. I'm gonna sing with the rose. I'm gonna play the rose, and then on turn four, instead of because you're just wasting your time throwing your stuff and dumping your hand to throw them into the locations, I'm gonna sing friends on four. I'm gonna play a library, attach the rose to it, and then I'm gonna go and draw. And I'm just gonna throw a bunch of characters down. Diablos, ton of Diablos, ton of Cuscos, rabbits. I'm gonna bounce the rabbit. I'm gonna draw a billion cards, and while I'm doing that, I'm dropping a fairy ship for the curve, like to fill out the curve. I'm dropping a mountain to fill out the curve. Oh, you wheeled me? I'm gonna drop three locations down on you. And these things just stick. And even though they give you one lore, I had a really and we'll go over it, but I did have like a funny situation where somebody dropped a library on me. They were playing Purple Steel, and I returned the favor by going library double fairy ship. And I was like, okay, um, my locations will race your one location. And I gladly traded into their character that was on it and tapped, let them draw a card, and said, draw as many cards as you want. Deal with, what was that, combined 16 points of willpower on these locations while you're doing that and dealing with that. I'm going to drop a bunch of characters. Yeah, it's uh it's a very interesting strategy that I wanted to try out, and I'm pleasantly surprised by how well it was. And every time I got to implement the strategy, it worked. And that's kind of like what's important is if I can get my strategy to get going, does it work? And does it do what it needs to do? And a lot of times, like you'll drop some locations early on, and you'll kind of be drawing, just doing purple stuff mid range. Like you just want to recur like a ton of resources, play a bunch of characters that can kind of, quest, replace themselves, you know, singing tons of friends, bouncing the rabbit back and forth, just drawing a bunch of cards while your opponent just kind of has to sit back and deal with the locations on top of it. And then you'll find many times that you'll be at like 10, 11 lore by the time they even get one. Because just immediately, whether they're going first or you're going first, you're immediately putting them in a position where they feel pressured from turn one and on. And and yeah, that's kind of like the strategy of the list. It takes some getting used to for sure. Um, and you have to understand that sometimes you have to wait on the location aspect of the deck and go really heavy into kind of the typical early play one drop, go Diablo, Cusco into a crab, into a fox, whatever you need to do to mitigate like other decks that like to do early games. So like against the Blue Steel Alice, you want to start with kind of this side of it, and then lean into this as the game goes on. Because if you can kind of keep parity with them, and this is with like any matchup, if you can kind of keep parity with them and then find that moment, like don't ink these and just find that moment where it's like, okay, I just so happen to like, because you're playing a bunch of really low cost characters besides the Maui. So like, and since we only have 7 uninkables in the deck, you're gonna be able to ink essentially every single turn. So you'll get to a point where you're just playing a bunch of weenies down on the board, and you've been able to keep parity with your opponent and what they're doing, and then have that little bit, have that like 3 ink left or whatever to drop a library. And then now they're like, okay, now I got to deal with this library. And while they're doing that, then you go, double mountain or mountain fairy ship, or you drop another library. And now the matchup that even they thought was even, you've now completely shifted and forced them in a situation where they have to play extremely defensively. And that's kind of what I did multiple times. Is it for a little bit of the match, it's anybody's game, and then next thing they know, I have five locations on the board, and they can't do anything. And that's another reason why I don't play Castle. So I had a couple people ask me, why don't you play Castle? It gains you two lore, and having a location that gains you two lore is great. And yeah, it is. And Castle was had a moment where it was very strong, but you don't see people play it. And you just now start seeing people playing Library. I've been playing Library. Somebody called me Ed. Somebody said, "Oh, look who's uh." Somebody was like, "Oh, look, we got an Ed here," and I'm like, "Hey, whoa, 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 whoa." Before Ed did the library shenanigans, I've been saying the location was good since it got released. Okay, shout out Ed though. um, but I don't even remember where I was at. But yeah, oh, Castle. So no Castle, and the main reason is all these locations, when you play them, for the most part, are going to be something that your opponent feels I need to immediately deal with. And if you run into an opponent that doesn't feel that way, they're going to learn very quickly by the end of that game that they should have dealt with it. Because I've had games where Fairy Ship literally gets to sit there from beginning to end and gains me five, six lore, seven lore, all on its own. Like they just let me go. Oh, that's starting my turn. Gain one, gain one, gain one. I've had games where they keep the fairy ship in the mountain there, and I go gain two, because I'm putting them in two things. That opponent decided all these characters I'm playing matter more than these locations, and so even though these are little locations that feel like, oh, I can deal with them whenever, by the time you feel like you can deal with them, it's too late if your opponent has that mentality. So, and even if they don't, even if they respect the locations and play to go after it, if they just slightly do not have what they need to get rid of these in time, if they get you like two, three lore a piece, that's better than any thievery, than any gathering, is better than any castle that most likely would have just sat there for like one, two turns, right? Like, and so castle can be good, but I would say I'm totally fine and happy and pleased with how just this 10 location setup was. The main difference I would honestly make in this list would be finding something to kind of move around to get a fourth B prep in. But I think that's also area dependent. If your area has a ton of amber steel, play four. If your area has a ton of like blurple or stuff like that, play four, because you need the most powerful card against them as much as possible, especially against like wheel decks. Because if they wheel away one of these, now you only have two, and you have a whole deck that you have to try to like get through. Whereas, okay, if you wheel one away, at least I have three, and it's crazy how like that just slight change matters a ton. And I definitely felt that in one of the later rounds of the tournament. So I would find a space to kind of get a fourth B prep depending on the area. But if your area is just playing a ton of blue steel, like blue steel items, or a ton of red blue items, you only need three, because you're very rarely getting put in a position where, okay, I need to blow everything up. Against those matchups, you just start slamming these and just slamming Diablos and Cuscos and Roses. Like you just start slamming everything that either gains you lore or like replaces itself, and and drawing a bunch of cards with friends. You're essentially, you play against those decks, you essentially just play mono purple. Like there was many rounds where I was just playing mono purple. Some people didn't were literally questioning if I even played Be Prepared in the list. Like I was just playing mono purple. And so certain matchups you get to do that. Like you just don't have to play any red cards, which is why we only see three here. We're not seeing any Medusa, we're not seeing any Tremaine, we're not seeing any Sisu, we're not seeing any Flynn. Because also that's another thing. Using a location line actually nets you more lore across the tournament than trying to do the Flynn Sisu line. That's a fact, especially now that Bell's around. So we only have Maui just as a big hitter. Maui's a great card. I love Elsa, but Elsa only hits for two unless we pair it with the crab. And we're not really too worried about getting rid of something before it quests, unless there's a bunch of Amber Steel. If there's a bunch of Diggy Hole, anything like that in your area, most definitely, you know, no, I don't know. Maybe not even. Maybe not even. I think you just always stick to the three Maui. We also went down to three brawls. So this was kind of like what I was testing is like just going three, like shaving down a little bit on the red cards to kind of be able to find space for your additional one drops, your snakes, because snakes weren't originally in the list, but I'm glad that I put them back in. Um, so finding space for the snakes, a third, getting a third crab in here, just shaving down to try to find more space for the good purple cards. Uh, and seeing if I could get away with just playing these three at three ofs. And yeah, I was pretty pleased with it. I could see even going like shaving down a Maui to go up to a fourth B prep, and that only puts you at 8 uninkables, which isn't bad. It's way less than what most decks are playing, anyways. So yeah, you're playing a lot of purple, and that was essentially where I landed for the list. So red purple is not dead, guys. This is what you need to try out. Try this out. Play this list. Do not, I know I can feel you right now. I can feel you right now about to pull up Dreamborn and throw a card in here that's not in this list. I can feel some of you doing that right now. Do not do that. Play this, maybe make the tweaks like I said. Like I could see shaving a Maui going 4B preps. I could see shaving uh what would I shave? Lord, that's a hard thing. It probably would just be Maui to go a fourth B prep. That's really tough. And if not, then it would have to be like maybe a crab and go up a fourth. But you could find something here to shave. I would keep the four libraries, keep that. Like the four ofs you need to absolutely keep is Diablo, Broom, because there were so many times where like I had a library out and for like 2 ink, I can play a Broom, attach a Broom, and then play a character, like another one drop, a two drop, literally anything. And now this Broom is gonna draw me 2 cards. So I paid 2 ink, got 2 cards. That's better than friends. So that's why we only have 3 Chernobyls, because we flipped it compared to the traditional lists where you would usually go 3 brooms, 4 Chernobyls. In this strategy, we're flipping it because we want to be able to keep drawing, keep seething through the deck as much as possible, and having to wait for the Chernobog to maybe do that is too slow. We need to play broom and use our other small characters to just immediately trigger the broom. So 4 Diablos keep, 4 brooms keep, 4 Cuscos keep. Snake, you could shave down to 2. Foxes, gotta keep. Crab, maybe shave down to 2. And I'm just suggesting what you could possibly shave to get the 4th B prep here. And that's something that I'm going to have to figure out myself. Roses keep, goat keep, rabbit keep. Maui, like I said, potential brawl. I can't see being able to go down to 2. Going down to 3 is probably about as much as you can do, just like to hold for Hiram's. Friends keep. I can't see not having friends here. I know a lot of burn lists don't run friends at all. Friends is busted. Okay, friends is an amazing card. Uh, and then this is what I would keep for the locations. I don't think I would go down to two for any of these. I think three, three, and four. That 10 location spot is really good. So those are kind of like some options that you can maybe shave down on. But yes, play this list. Just test it. Give it time. Test it. Mess like just get used to when you should play the locations. And these are things that I'm still getting used to, right? Like I before I even went to Southside Gaming, I think I play tested this like just a couple of times. But through that play testing, I felt like and my other buddies were in a position where we're like, okay, this might actually have some legs. And and taking it to this tournament was that way of really stress testing it. And so I'm telling you, play this list. I think the mirror match wouldn't even be bad. So if you end up somehow running into somebody else that is playing this, the mirror match isn't that bad. You got your Mauis, you got your crabs, you got your foxes. It'll probably be pretty quick, like to identify, well, this is what they're playing. So I think the mirror match could be fun. Uh, or maybe it's cancer. I don't know. I haven't played it, but I like red purple mirror matches. It's like one of the only mirror matches I even like in this game. So yeah, try this list out just this way, this exact 60, or do that whatever shave to get the fourth B prep if you feel like you need it in your area, and just practice with it. It's going to take a little bit. It's going to take a little bit to get used to because it's a different type of style, and you're gonna have to figure out the times of when to play the locations, and sometimes you gotta like learn when to play the locations, even if you know they can get rid of it. Because if I'm paying one, if all I have to do is pay one to keep my board of characters safe after they quest, that is 100% worth it. I just played a, a one cost distraction. And if you don't get rid of it and they instead go for one of your characters, then that's totally fine too. Because this will add up. And by the time you think that, okay, it's about time to get rid of this, I'm going to drop some more. And then now you're kind of stuck. And then if I have my backup B prep ready to go, because you now didn't respect this, like the locations, they're gonna stick. So get used to that. Play test it, practice, see how you do, see how I think it's a very fun list, and I think one of the biggest things about the list is it's less than $100. And the reason why it even got up to that, because it was less than 90, but then I eventually tested and put the Maui's in, which kind of pushed it up over there. But it wouldn't even be, it would maybe be less than 80. Math, I don't know. It'd probably be less than 80 if it didn't have the Maui's in it, but you need the Maui's. But only not like less than $100 for a deck that can actually, and I'm telling you, can actually contend against the top two, the tier one or tier zero, whatever you want to put them at, can very much contend against those for less than $100. I think it's something to consider and mess around with. So, real quick, let me go over my matchups here. Uh, and we'll kind of run through them. I do want to clarify real quick here on round 7, as I was promptly corrected by Buddy Ghosty over here. Uh, it was a very long day. It was a very tiring day. Um, round 7, I did get 2-0. So I didn't get 2-1. It wasn't 1-2. It was 2-0. I got absolutely decimated. Blurple is a very tough matchup, and I'll go into that once we get to there. So we'll just run through this real quick. My matchup spread was super weird. It was super weird. So somehow, even though 60% of the room was blue steel and red blue, which is exactly what I was gunning for, I only saw either one of those once the entire time. And I think there was a specific moment that kind of like led me to a cascade of matchups that were not that. And we'll go over that. So, and round one, saw exactly what I wanted to see. Red blue. And I was on the draw and it didn't even matter. Red blue feels so free. It doesn't matter what version they're running. I'm telling you, this matchup is so free. Once you get used to the list, once you play, you're never gonna have to worry about red blue. Literally in both of these games, they got the Maui Shark out both games. They played Pirates Life twice. Both games didn't even matter. Literally didn't even matter. You would have to have like a very slow start, and they have to see every single answer turn after turn, or you just run away. Like literally both of these games I drew half my deck and I had locations just sitting there. So red blue free, and that's what I wanted to see. I expected there to be more blue steel than red blue, um but definitely wanted to see more red blue matchups because that's just like a free W for me. Round two, somehow I run into Jafar Wheel, purple steel. So I expected, so my spread was like, my prediction was like red blue, blue steel, top two, and then under that purple steel, and then whatever under, and then red purple to be like in the other percent. And that's essentially what the turnout ended up being. And yeah, so did not expect to see a Jafar wheel. And the way that this round ended, opponent was awesome, super chill. It was a fun game, fun round. But oh my lord, the way that the game ended, everybody was like crowded around watching. My buddy Mark was like at the table right next to me watching. My opponent that I had in round seven was playing against Mark and they were watching. And so it's in game three. Game three, I'm on the play, doing good. We kind of like have a grindy point, but my deck just has more ways of getting way back into it. Even though we're playing purple, mine's just way more into the draw and cascading effect of of purple. And literally, I'm at 19 lore. I have a library on board, and I have like 6 characters. I have my entire play set of Diablos on the board and like 2 Cuscos. It had a ton of characters, 19. There's absolutely no way any single deck was going to stop me at that point. They were only at 6 lore. I was at 19. But they had the big Jafar on board. They had 2 cards in hand. Their only way to win would be the double wheel. And they didn't. And it hurt, man. It hurt. I'm like, that game, everybody was like, bro, that game should have been yours. Like, people looked over at the board by the time my last turn was done. And, it's like when you're watching a game and then it reaches that certain level where you're like, okay, it's over. I don't have to watch anymore. That's where people were at. They were like, okay, we've seen enough. Terrace has this in the bag. It's a wrap. And I get hit with the double Jafar wheel. And like I can't be mad at it. Like the game allows for really big turns like that, for high rolls like that, and it's just it's things that happen. So it's not something that I was like super mad about. But it was like, oh my god, round two. This is how I'm gonna get my first loss. Are you kidding me? And yeah, so and I think this moment right here, this round two loss, is what caused the rest of my matchups to be what they were. Because if I would have won this round, I highly believe, and so do like a lot of my buddies believe, that we would have, like, I would have gotten into the tables I needed to. Because literally all the top 2 tables were essentially like purple steel, like you had a rogue amber steel, which I ended up facing in round six. Um, but it was essentially like maybe one or two purple steals, red, blue, and blue steel. And that's exactly what I wanted to see. And if I would have actually been able to be in those tables after round two, I'm so locked for top eight. I'm telling you, but it's okay. It happens. It's a variance game. Things happen. The best thing you can do is just play to the best of your ability. So had this loss, and I was like, you know what? I've had many tournaments where I get a round two loss to like some spicy list, and then I'm able to claw back. It's happened like multiple times where I get a round one or round two loss, and then I'm able to just crush it the rest of the time. Um, and 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 so that's what I was banking on here. And so we go into round three, find blue steel. I'm able to take it. Then I go round four, another Jafar wheel somehow. And this is what was crazy. I think there was only two or three people for some reason that were playing Jafar wheel. Shout out to them. And somehow I pair into two of them, two out of three. Out of 134 or 36 people, I run into two Jafar wheels. I'm like, are you kidding me? But I'm able to 2-0 this one because, you know, if they don't get the crazy like Jafar pop off, you just beat them. And so I was able to do that here in round four. Round five, another purple steel, but this was like the traditional kind of Cobra version that you see. Uh, Game two was actually really close, but I was they played a steel does what it does, where it's a very close game. You have what you need in your hand to answer what they're about to do, and there's only one card that they can play that keeps you from taking the game, and it's Pete. And that's exactly what happened. So we went to game three, and then on game three, I, I it was either game one or game three that ended with me having like six locations on the board. It was hilarious, but amazing opponent, great game, won that. I was feeling good. I'm like, I'm still in here. We're on a roll. Go to round six, and I go up against. I'm sorry, I'm terrible with names, but and remembering them. But I go up against the guy, super chill, really cool guy that won the previous SSG event, and he was playing Amber Steel Wheel, and yeah, it was a fight on both ends. Like game one was pretty decisively theirs. They just hit the absolute curve they needed. I couldn't stop the aerial from wheeling. To be fair, like last thing I was even expecting mulligan wise when I was going into game one was like a whole new world list. So it's like what I'm trying to do is like catch people off guard, and I got caught off guard. So game one was like, oh shit, okay, this is what we're going up against. So I kind of pivoted, had in mind, okay, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I need to go against this because I've played and beat Amber Steel Wheel many times, even. But the thing is, with this list, it's more geared towards those red, blue, and blue steel matchups. So we don't have the Medusas or the Elsas or the Tremaines or the big Sisu to kind of help with those sort of matchups. So I was really having to just kind of mid range it out, and uh, and yeah, game two I was able to take it because another thing is in game one I probably would have been able to take it if I actually saw my locations, but I saw like none. And then game two, I was finally able to go, mountain ferry ship, and then from there, it's a wrap. I had it. He was just on like so much defensive mode the entire time. And then game three was super close. It could have been anybody's game on game three, and he was just able to take it in the end. But very, very good round, very fun games. And yeah, I was all the way up at table three, man. I was feeling good. I'm like, all right, we're at the top tables. I'm sure finally, after all these matchups, I'm going to see the lists that these entire tables are full of. And I get the wheel guy. I get the Amber Steel wheel player. I'm like, oh my lord. And so get the loss. and I was pretty much just trying to play for top 16 at that point to get some sort of prizing. And then round seven, Blurple, and this was a matchup I had zero play testing against. I didn't even think to even attempt to see what this matchup would even be like. And yeah, it's a very tricky one. It's a tough one, and I think it's just a simple matter of any red purple versus Blurple matchup, which is resources. I think if you can keep at even, even rate of card draw, and that you're gonna do better because they have no way to stop beat prep, and if you need to, you can time a really good beat prep and stuff like that, and deal with it. But purple has a lot of great ways, because they have Fox, Crab, Elsa, whatever it may be to help combat locations. It is a very tricky kind of matchup, and you have to just both of you kind of have the same strategy. But the thing is, he was also playing Bell in his list and Popsicles, and good lord, is that crazy? Yeah, every time it was like both games, turn one, Popsicle, Bell, and then like on turn two, you just get to like sing friends and just do a bunch of shenanigans. Yeah, Blurple has some good anything that's running blue. Got amazing tools. So yeah, like I said, correction. I got too old. I got too old here. Um, and then in round eight, I meant to drop, but was still in. And I just like gave the 2-0 to my opponent because we were gonna go out. Everybody was like going to go get some food and had not eaten up to this entire point. So gave my opponent the 2-0 just to see maybe if they can somehow make it in. But I think anybody that was X and two or X and three at that point, which I think we both were, just had no chance. So yeah, I mean my matchups were really strange or like not what I predicted, but anytime I went against what I could predict. And by the way, this 2-1 against Blue Steel was against more of like an Alice version, which I expected kind of to go like 2-1. Just because you're both playing aggressive, they have stuff with Ward, and like you just need to be able to kind of keep up with their curves. So this was more of like an aggro Blue Steel. But in playtesting against like the normal Blue Steel, especially against like a super item heavy version Blue Steel, I think you can easily get away with a 2-0 just like you can with red blue. And I was really hoping to just run into more of those. I think I would have had a much better time if I did. But no, the list got stress tested at least. That was the biggest takeaway, is that the list got stress tested, and while being stress tested, a lot of people, a lot of my buddies and stuff, agreed that you know what, the deck has legs. It's actually a legitimate way to play red purple. It works. And I think even though I wasn't able to make it into top 16, I wasn't able to make it into top 8. I think because we know that, blue steel and red blue are only going to get more popular, that that we're going to see more and more of it, and it's really going to be a blue dominated meta. So I think us going ahead and playing the red purple guys this way can be one of the disruptors. And since it got stress tested in this type of field, the main takeaway is that even though I didn't make it, and that's rough for me because like I'm a competitive person. Even though I didn't make it, I came out with the feeling that this is legitimate, and I felt good playing the list. I felt like it was strong. I felt like it did what it needed to do, and it did it often, which is what's important. Um, and it didn't feel like, oh, I'm trying to feed into some sort of combo or high roll in order to win. It was just sticking to the game plan of what red purple typically is, which is I'm going to play a very consistent game. but we're this sort of strategy and this sort of list feeds into I'm playing more things that it's going to be harder for the actual like tier, A tier decks to interact and deal with. And if I can slow them down and make them completely pivot, then all that does is make my deck better. If now, if they're in a position where they're like, I can just completely ignore you and just win anyways and just go full solitaire mode, then like, hey, it is what it is. But this list pushes them into, a direction where they have to start like pivoting and thinking about, okay, how am I going to deal with this? Because if not, you're just going to gain like 2, 3 lore at the beginning of every single turn, and that adds up when you're also slamming a bunch of characters. And so it's good. It's a good strategy. This is a legitimate way to play red purple, guys. Red purple is not dead. We're alive. We're alive. I proved it can happen. I almost gave up. I almost gave up myself, but I didn't. I persevered. And you guys can persevere too. We can make it through. Try this out. I'm telling you, it's fun. It's an interesting way to play red purple. And yeah, it takes a little bit of practice. Like I said, I still need to practice, but it can work. So yeah, I'm calling it house party just because a lot of locations. You take a ship to get to the mountain to go to the library where we're having a party. That is the play. So try this out, guys. If you want to use, hey, I'm playing red purple house party. I don't care. Like if this is like, if we can make house party, like, oh, I'm playing house party list, like it's a little inside thing. I'm down for it. Let's do that. But if anything, you just say, oh, I'm playing red purple with locations. We don't have to be hip and have names. But shout out Harlan, shout out Kiwi. I literally have it sleeved up. It's fun. It's a fun list. But I love me some purple, and purple is fun. I like purple. I like drawing a lot of cards, to be more specific. So thank you guys for watching. Appreciate you guys for watching the video. Give me a like and give me a subscribe. I keep forgetting to say this at the beginning because it works better when you say it at the beginning. But whatever. But yeah, like, subscribe, leave a comment. Let me know how you feel about the list. Play the list. Like I said, don't change nothing. Maybe make the little cut to get the fourth B prep in, but don't change nothing else. And just play the list. Practice the list. And come back and tell me how you feel about it. But outside of that, we're not dead. We're alive. Red Purple Gang. We continue the fight. And yeah, your favorite people might have given up on the list, but I didn't. And I proved people and convinced people in person that it's legitimate. So thank you guys for watching. Have a great day, whatever day it is for you. And peace out.